and welcome to my first Apama application. In this video, we will look at creating an application from scratch. This example will include an EPL plugin that uses a third-party Twitter library, create a monitor that will listen for various weather-related events for locations, generate an output string based on those events received, and then tweet those messages. So let's get started. First, we need to create a new Apama project with a sensible name. We're going to call this Weather Advisor. Add in both types of Java support in this configuration. We'll click on the glasses to see all the components available in the project. Looking through the project as it is now, you can see the Java support we added and various other categories. The next thing we need to do is define our monitor with a descriptive name. As this is our one and only monitor, we name it similar to the project. We must now define some events that will drive the project. These could be in a separate events definition file for good practice and especially for larger projects. Here we will have location events, also some other weather-related events which will be associated with each location. So you can see we have the location name within each of these. Now let's declare our monitor, which will be listening for events and later call out to the plugin that I mentioned. Declare the onload action, as this is always called on startup. Now we declare a listener for all locations, which will call an action that we will declare in a minute to monitor the weather information for that location. You will see we pass in the location and store the name for easy access in a local variable. Also add an output string that will show up in the correlators log file. We also declare some variables to assign the event information to allow us access to that information. We will then set up a listener based on this to listen until we get one of each of the following: a temperature for this location, a rain event for this location, and a wind speed event for this location. Only then will this listener fire. When the listener fires, we add some logic to check various conditions on each of the received events, and we can then try to determine some sensible output strings. As you can see, at the minute we are doing nothing with those strings, but we will come back to this shortly. To get the message to the outside world, we would like to tweet it, so we need to create a Twitter plugin. Do this by creating a new Java EPL plugin and call it something sensible. In this case, we will call it Tweeter. This will need to use a third-party library called Twitter4j, which you will have to set up outside of this project, but this is fairly straightforward and I will provide a link which describes this. In order to access the Twitter4j library in our application, we need to copy in the jar files and the properties file that's predefined with my Twitter API key into our projects folder. We must then refresh our project to make it visible and explicitly add it by going to the Properties menu. Under the Java build path, select Libraries and add jars. And from our projects folder, you can now point it at the Twitter4j jar. Next, within our plugin, we need to write the Java code that will allow us access to the Twitter4j API. We need to import some packages to be able to access some of the Twitter classes we need. Let's keep it simple and just have it creating an instance of the Twitter factory and define a method called sendTweet. This will call update status on the Twitter instance, which will broadcast it to Twitter. And importantly, we also have this call surrounded by some error checking code. This sendTweet method is what we will call from the monitor when we have received enough information that we want to tweet. Now let's go back to our monitor to make use of this. At the minute, we generate a message but do nothing with it. We would like to use the Twitter plugin in this monitor script, and to do this we must import it with import tweeter as twit. Now when we generate our message, we can add code to call the sendTweet method on the Twitter instance. The final thing we need to do is send some events in to trigger the listeners that we have set up. So we create a separate events file, again with a sensible name. We are just simulating events here, but we could easily set it up to have events being sent in from real-world applications. In this example, we send 2 location events which would trigger the location listener twice. And in different sequences, we send one of each of the weather-related events for each location, which should trigger the listeners for each location that are waiting for all 3 weather-related events before firing. So for each location, we should see a tweet being sent off. Now let's run our project to see all this coming together and keep an eye on the correlators log file. Here we can see that it did set up monitoring for both locations and according to this it did send 2 tweets. So let's confirm this by going to a browser and checking it on Twitter. Using our Apama for All account, which was linked when we set up the third-party Twitter for J library. And you can see the tweets, one for each location, with the message based on the information it received from the various weather events. Thanks for watching.